Greetings, fellow seekers of truth and unravelers of ancient enigmas. Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper, where history's most profound secrets await your keen discovery. Let the journey of discovery begin. Kahan and the Ancient Mystery in Turkey. There's a theory suggesting that some of the universe's greatest secrets may lie hidden beneath the ancient ruins of Turkey. Kahan, an archaeological site in southeastern Turkey, has drawn special attention from researchers, not only because of its extraordinary age, estimated between 11,500 and 12,500 years ago, making it about 7,000 years older than the Egyptian pyramids, but also because of the ongoing debates surrounding its origins and purpose. Kahan is part of the larger complex known as Göbekli. Recent excavations have revealed massive stone pillars and intricately carved statues depicting animals, humans, and complex abstract symbols. Some of these statues strikingly portray ancient deities with 8-fingered hands, while Kahan also preserves the oldest known human statue in the world, dated to around 11,400 years ago. These traces go far beyond the technical capabilities once thought possible for prehistoric hunter-gatherer societies. Alongside the monumental structures, ancient people also left behind numerous stone tools, axes, knives, arrowheads, demonstrating a surprisingly advanced level of technology. This raises major questions. Who built these structures? And what prompted ancient humans to abandon their nomadic lifestyle to settle here permanently? Some scholars from the ancient astronaut school of thought believe that the statues and underground structures at Kahan are remnants of an extremely advanced civilization, possibly the oldest known to humankind. According to this perspective, those who once lived here possessed knowledge far beyond what was typical for their time. Perhaps they were engineers, mathematicians, or even the first teachers of early humanity. More boldly, there is another theory proposing that the builders of Kahan were not Earth's native inhabitants at all. The strange carvings and advanced construction techniques have led some researchers to speculate that Kahan may have been influenced by extraterrestrial beings, especially since many of the stone figures feature large heads and oversized eyes resembling divine symbols or depictions of visitors from another world. However, before jumping to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, many scientists believe that Kahan may have been an important religious or ceremonial center. The carvings could represent gods, mythological figures, or cosmic views central to the culture of the time. Regardless of the interpretation, it is undeniable that the builders of Kahan possessed knowledge and skills far beyond their era. Today, research at Kahan plays a crucial role in reconstructing human history. Thanks to modern technologies such as ground-penetrating radar and 3D scanning, experts from multiple fields are gradually deciphering the mysteries of this ancient site. Every new discovery has the potential to fundamentally alter our understanding of human history and the evolution of society. The age before the moon. Human history has recorded strange legends about a time when the moon had not yet appeared in the night sky. Many ancient cultures left behind traces of this so-called pre-lunar age. Greek philosophers such as Democritus and Anaxagoras spoke of a period when the sky was completely devoid of the moon. Aristotle wrote about the Pallasians, an ancient community in Arcadia, who lived before the moon's appearance. So much so that they were called proselynes, meaning those who came before the moon. Apollonius of Rhodes mentioned a time when not all celestial bodies had emerged, while Plutarch referred to the Arcadians as the people before the moon. The Roman poet Ovid even claimed they were older than the time of Zeus and the moon itself. These stories were not limited to Greece. In Bolivia, symbols at Colossae suggest that the moon entered Earth's orbit at a specific point in time after humans had already settled there. The site's calendar gate even hints that Earth once had a smaller satellite before the moon's arrival. Several tribes in Colombia and Africa also preserved myths of a time without the moon. The Chiba people of the Bogotá Plateau spoke of an era under a moonless sky, while the Zulu in Africa told legends of two alien brothers, Juan and Manku, who brought the moon into orbit hundreds of generations ago. These legends raise compelling questions. How did the moon come to Earth? And did humanity witness that moment? Although the answers remain elusive, these ancient myths suggest that the moon's history may be far more complex than modern humans imagine. The lost continent of Lemura. Throughout Earth's history, continents have constantly shifted, changing their positions and shapes. Some land masses have even vanished beneath the ocean, leaving behind legends of lost continents in human memory. Lemuria is one of these, an alleged lost continent that became the subject of serious debate in the 19th century. The idea originated with British zoologist Philip Slater. In 1864, he observed that Madagascar was home to numerous endemic species of lemurs, while Africa and India were completely devoid of them at a time when the theories of plate tectonics and continental drift had not yet emerged. Slater proposed the existence of a massive land bridge connecting these regions. He named this hypothetical continent Lemura, inspired by the lemurs themselves. During the Victorian era, theories of a lost continent helped explain the strange similarities in flora and fauna across distant geographic regions. Lemuria soon captivated not only scientists but also mystics and radical political movements. Later, German biologist Ernst Haeckel, known for supporting Darwin's theory, expanded on the idea, claiming that Lemuria was the original cradle of humankind. He argued that humans evolved on Lemuria before spreading across the globe. Charles Darwin, however, disagreed, famously mocking that geologists who believed in sunken continents deserved a special place in hell. Lemuria was further mythologized by the Russian occultist Helena Blavatsky in the 19th century. She claimed that Lemura was home to an ancient race of giants with unusual traits, such as being hermaphroditic, egg-laying, and even coexisting with dinosaurs. In colonial India, British ethnologists linked with the Dravidian people of southern India, while the Tamil community merged the theory into their legends of the lost civilization of Kumari Kandam. Even today, Lemura continues to appear in the imagination of many as a utopian land, much like Wakanda. Geological findings in 2013 of zircon and granite fragments beneath the Indian Ocean seem to support the hypothesis of a lost continent, with data indicating that the area disappeared around 84 million years ago, uncannily matching the idea of a land bridge connecting India and Africa. While modern science largely rejects the existence of Lemuria, the possibility of its existence remains a subject of ongoing debate. The first written language. The Sumerians were not only the inventors of the wheel, but also among the first cultures to create a written language. Ununiform script emerged in Mesopotamia around 3200 B.C., becoming the only writing system in the world today that can be traced back to its very origin. In its earliest stages, writing was not used for storytelling or journalism, but for recording and inventorying goods in trade. Merchants at the time needed a way to keep track of their shipments, and so the recording process evolved, from using clay tokens to count goods to pictographic drawings and finally into a complete alphabet. However, the Sumerians were not the only civilization to develop writing. In China, efforts were also made to create a writing system, but archaeologists have yet to determine its exact starting date. In contrast, cuneiform can be pinpointed to specific centuries, making it the oldest known script in human history. Archaeologists have even traced the evolution of this language across nearly 8,000 years, from 8,000 to 3,500 B.C. The Sumerians used clay tokens instead of writing. From 3,500 to 3,000 B.C. they began using phonetic symbols. Then between 3 and 1,500 B.C. they developed an alphabet consisting of about 20 characters, each representing a single sound bit. Science. For centuries, pyramids have been regarded as symbols of power and grandeur, but many theories also suggest they may have functioned as ancient power plants. In 2003, at the Temple of Quetzalcoatl in Teotihuacan, archaeologist Sergio Gomez accidentally discovered a large crack in the ground near a massive pyramid. Subsequent excavations revealed a complex underground tunnel system, more than 12 m deep, and over 100 meters long, hidden directly beneath the pyramid. The tunnel walls were coated with pyrite, a mineral that glows mysteriously in the dark. The system also contained tens of thousands of artifacts, including golden spheres crafted from pyrite, traces of chemicals, and unusual minerals. All these elements led researchers to hypothesize that the ancient builders may have once harnessed a primitive form of energy technology. Some scientists believe that the interaction of water, minerals, and electromagnetic fields within the tunnels could have generated some type of energy. Whether this energy was used for illumination, religious purposes, or daily life remains an open question. Interestingly, many pyramids in Central and South America also show signs of utilizing Earth's natural energy fields. The ancients used materials like quartz and granite to conduct energy, and even manipulated water flow to create electrical effects in certain pyramids. These discoveries suggest that the scientific and technical knowledge of ancient civilizations may have far surpassed what modern society has long assumed. The mathematics of a small island. Amid the vast South Pacific Ocean lies the small island of Mangareva, home to only about 2,000 people, yet once the birthplace of a mathematical system that astonished the modern world. The ancient inhabitants of Mangareva not only mastered calculations in their daily lives, but also invented a binary counting system, the very same principle used by modern computers. In 2013, researchers Andrea Bender and Sigurd Beller discovered that the Mungungur Evans used a decimal system for numbers 1 to 10, then switched to a binary-based system for larger numbers. They had distinct words for 20, 40, and 80, enabling them to perform quick mental calculations without any written notation. Remarkably, this system was entirely designed for trade. The Mangarians were skilled merchants who exchanged goods such as turtles, octopus, coconuts, and breadfruit with distant islands like Hawaii and Tahiti. Thanks to their binary system, they could keep precise counts and avoid fraud in complex transactions. Sadly, this sophisticated numerical system vanished by the mid-15th century, leaving behind a reminder that even the smallest civilizations can produce achievements far beyond what humanity might expect. The origins of the Atlantis legend. The legend of the lost city of Atlantis has long haunted researchers and explorers. Recently, discoveries beneath the ocean off the Canary Islands have breathed new life into this ancient mystery. Spanish scientists uncovered a massive underwater mountain named Mount Los Atlantis, which was formed by 3 large volcanoes. Over millions of years, eruptions created islands that eventually sank into the ocean, leaving behind traces such as beaches and sand dunes, still preserved just 60 m below the surface. The formation, collapse, and disappearance of these islands date back to the Eocene epoch between 56 and 34 million years ago, when volcanic eruptions ceased. The lava cooled and the islands sank under their own weight. The melting of ice after the Ice Age caused sea levels to rise even further, sweeping away what remained of the islands. While no evidence confirms that an actual city existed at Mount Los Atlantis, the disappearance of these large islands may have inspired the legend of a land swallowed by the gods as punishment for arrogance and decadence. Today, scientists continue to collect samples and data from the seabed to pinpoint when the islands began sinking, with plans for deeper exploration. The waters surrounding this site still hold many secrets yet to be uncovered. The Menyun dwarfs of Hawaii. Stories of little people have existed throughout human history. Fairies, dwarfs, goblins, and tiny beings. But there is one group you may not have heard of. The Menyun of Hawaii. According to legend, the Menyun were small, highly skilled beings who would secretly emerge from the forests at night to build impressive stone structures only to vanish before dawn. But who were the Menehune? Were they real people or merely a product of myth? Historically, native Hawaiians believed the Menehune were an actual tribe. Some even claimed that groups of people on Kauai and the Big Island in the early 1800s were descendants of the Menehune. Notably, Historian R.S. Kendall leaned toward the belief that the Menehune were real. However, this view is not widely accepted. In 1951, the Bishop Museum released a report that completely reshaped the image of the Menehune. According to the report, these little people were not real humans, but mythological beings, an amalgamation of forgotten Hawaiian history and European reinterpretation. The report noted that the Menehune were not mentioned in Hawaiian traditions before European contact, and the earliest references to them only appeared in the late 19th century. Could it be that the story of the Menehune was a European creation? That remains a mystery. What is certain is that the Menehune are described as fundamentally different from ordinary humans. Magical forest guardians with extraordinary building skills. They were said to be short and stocky, living deep in the forests in stone caves or simple leaf huts. Bananas were their favorite food, and they wore clothing made from banana leaves and fibers. This may sound like a fairy tale, but it could have roots in the lives of ancient Hawaiians. Some suggest that the Menehune were an early group of settlers who lived more simply than later Hawaiians, forming the basis for the legend. Original Hawaiian records never described the Menehune as supernatural. Only when their stories were translated into English were they transformed into a mythical race. In many ways, the legend of the Menehune is the result of stories being altered over time. Early Hawaiian historians like David Malo and Samuel Kamakaua documented tales from community elders that describe customs and lifestyles very similar to those attributed to the Menehune. Living in the mountains, building homes and clothes from banana plants, and excelling at stone construction. These ancient Hawaiians may very well have been the real origin of the Menehune legend. Adding to the mystery, Captain Cook and other explorers noted that most Hawaiians they encountered were tall and robust, but occasionally came across groups of shorter, more primitive-looking people. Archaeological evidence has also revealed that some ancient Hawaiians were of smaller stature, fueling further questions about the truth behind the Menehune. So, what is the truth? The Menehune may be both a blend of real history and myth, a memory of an ancient group preserved in oral tradition, or they could simply be a legend. The ancient sound wizards. The ancient ability to understand and harness sound has long fascinated modern researchers. Early civilizations seem to have a profound grasp of both the physical and psychological effects of different sound frequencies. They knew that sound could directly influence emotions, moods, and even physiological responses such as heart rate and blood pressure. High frequencies could induce stress while low tones brought a sense of calm. This is vividly demonstrated in ancient structures like the Great Pyramid of Giza, where chambers and passageways can amplify sound in unusual ways. At Stonehenge, the arrangement of massive stones suggests an intention to create special acoustic effects. The temples of Gontia on the islands of Gu and Malta were also constructed to optimize sound resonance for religious ceremonies. Mythological stories such as the Hindu god Shiva with his divine drum further reinforce the belief in the true power of sound. Modern studies by Dr. Hans Jenny have shown that certain sound frequencies can arrange matter into specific geometric patterns. This has led many to speculate. Could the ancients have used sound to create intricate designs in art and architecture, or even move massive stones through sound waves? While there is no concrete evidence that acoustic levitation was ever used, it is undeniable that ancient knowledge of sound may hold the key to many architectural marvels that remain unexplained today. A new culture in Siberia. In 2018, something unexpected happened in Siberia. While workers were leveling the ground for a new cemetery, they stumbled upon a 2,000-year-old ancient tomb. As they flattened what appeared to be a natural hill, they unknowingly unveiled a chapter of history that may belong to a previously unknown civilization. That hill turned out to be the last trace of a vanished community. The discovery immediately drew the attention of Dr. Dmitry Vinogradov and a research team from the Siberian Federal University, who began excavations in 2021. They uncovered a large rectangular pit lined with wood and carpeted with birch bark. Inside were the remains of 50 individuals accompanied by their most precious belongings: bronze axes, daggers, knives, mirrors, sewing needles, beads, and even ceramic vessels used to store food. A striking bronze relief depicted a deer, a familiar motif in Scythian art. The Scythians were nomadic warriors who roamed Central Asia from the 7th to the 3rd century B.C. They were renowned for their horseback riding, endurance, resilience, and their ability to vanish into the vast steppes at will. Their influence extended from China to the Black Sea. Most of what we know about them comes from the writings of ancient Greek, Persian, and Assyrian sources. They were both feared and admired, often labeled as barbarians. Dr. Vinogradov and his team believe the tomb served as a burial site for multiple generations of the same family. They even proposed that this might be the remnant of a new Siberian-style culture which they named the Tyr culture. However, the name itself isn't entirely new. Historian Malv Gregory had previously discovered similar sites in the area. So, is this truly an entirely new culture or just a variation of something already known? Archaeologists have uncovered thousands of Scythian burial mounds, known as Koreans, across the Eurasian steppe. And this new Siberian tomb shares many similarities. However, there's one major problem. The earth-moving process that exposed the tomb also destroyed several key pieces of evidence that has made it harder than ever to determine whether this is a distinct culture of its own. Could this discovery open a new chapter in ancient history? It's still too early to say. But one thing is certain. Siberia still holds countless secrets. And this is only one of them. The ancient mathematics tablet. A newly revealed clay tablet may hold the oldest evidence of geometry ever discovered. This artifact dates from around 1900 to 600 B.C. It was created by a Babylonian surveyor, crafted from clay, and inscribed with a stylus. In truth, the tablet wasn't recently discovered. It had sat for a century in a museum in Istanbul, unnoticed and misunderstood, until modern researchers finally examined it in the archives. Scholars were stunned to realize that this Babylonian had mastered the Pythagorean theorem nearly 1,000 years before Pythagoras himself. This discovery is powerful enough to rewrite history. Because until now, most people believed Greek astronomers were the first to develop trigonometry. But the truth is, ancient Babylonians were far more advanced than scholars ever imagined. These were people doing complex mathematics while most of the world still lived in caves, struggling to record their thoughts. The person who deciphered the tablet was Daniel Mansfield alongside his colleague Norman Wildberger. The tablet is known as Plimpton, 322 and 4,000 years old and filled with number sets that mathematicians recognize as Pythagorean triples. It was likely used as an ancient tool to solve advanced geometric problems, and may have even guided the construction of some of Babylon's most remarkable structures. Baalbek may be the greatest ancient city ever built. It stands in modern-day Lebanon in the Bekaa Valley on a raised plateau. Baalbek has been continuously inhabited for 10,000 years, tracing its origins back to the world's earliest great civilizations, likely constructed by the Sumerians. Some historians call this place the center of life and fertility in the ancient world. The city's name comes from two words: Baal, the lord of the gods worshipped by both the Sumerians and Babylonians. He was essentially the predecessor to deities like Zeus and Jupiter. The word Bek means origin, and so the city was named the source of Ba. The Romans later gave it a Greek name, Heliopolis, meaning city of the Sunday. What's even more incredible is that Baalbek is still inhabited today with a population of around 880,000. Its history stretches all the way back to the dawn of modern humanity around 10,000 BCE, when it was a Neolithic settlement. As the community grew, people continued to build, eventually creating a city worthy of their gods. The most iconic feature of ancient Baalbek is the Temple of Baal at its center. The stones used in this temple are 10 times heavier than the largest stones used at the Great Pyramid of Giza. Transporting and lifting these stones into place is something modern science still cannot fully explain. These blocks had to be moved uphill, ruling out the use of sleds, pulleys, or simple levers. It's almost as if the temple was built using magic. Noah's Ark was real. In the dim light of time, 4,000-year-old clay tablet has emerged, potentially reshaping humanity's understanding of history. On its cracked surface are cuneiform inscriptions describing a strange round vessel, perhaps the clearest physical evidence yet of the biblical Great Flood. A flood once occurred. It didn't just drown lands. It wiped out an entire pre-flood civilization. And just like in legend, a man named Noah built a boat. Among the few people in the world who can read ancient Mesopotamian cuneiform is a scholar named Irving Finkel. Not only is he a leading expert in ancient languages, but he's also the author of a book about Noah's Ark. And yet, ironically, he once boldly declared, "I believe 107% that such a boat never existed." A striking contradiction from someone who's dedicated his life to studying it. But the story of the Great Flood didn't originate in the Bible. Long before the holy texts were written, ancient civilizations across the globe told similar tales of a massive deluge sent from the heavens. Then one day, a stranger approached Irving and handed him a freshly unearthed clay tablet still warm from the earth. On it were 60 lines of cuneiform script. Irving began decoding it, unaware that he held the oldest known version of the flood narrative, the original story, the root of the biblical legend. Many scholars agree that during the Jewish exile in Babylon, the Hebrews came into contact with Babylonian flood myths and adapted them into their own scripture. The same familiar motif. A man warned by the gods who builds a boat to save his family from divine wrath. Since the 19th century, archaeologists have unearthed multiple tablets telling similar stories. But the one in Irving's hands was different. It was the only one to describe how the ark was actually constructed. The image of a long boat with a pointed bow was erased. Instead, the ancient text described a round boat shaped as wide as a giant disc assembled from wooden planks and tied together with rope. Even more remarkably, the tablet listed the boat's dimensions, the required length of rope, and the type of bitumen used to seal the gaps. A black sticky substance with waterproofing properties like modern tar. Irving admitted that these details didn't prove the boat ever existed, but they did reveal the astonishing technical knowledge of ancient shipbuilders. Though he still believes Noah and his ark are mythical, Irving acknowledged this as one of the most important texts humanity has ever discovered. He predicted the find would send shockwaves through the community of ark hunters. For centuries, all efforts focused on Mount Ararat in Turkey, the supposed resting place of the ark. But now, all eyes might turn to something else. The remains of a circular boat. Perhaps Noah wasn't the only one with a vessel. Maybe in the pre-flood era, massive disc-shaped boats were not uncommon. Perhaps a lost civilization once connected by ancient sea routes had already prepared their escape from catastrophe. Today, Irving's clay tablet is being prepared for exhibition at the British Museum, placed beside another priceless artifact, the oldest world map ever found. The map depicts Babylon, its edge encircled by a river. Beyond the river are a few tiny islands. A note on the back of the tablet claims that one of these islands is where a boat once ran ground. This detail has led many to believe the Babylonians may have known of enormous ships, so large they resembled islands floating in the ocean. Maybe they weren't just boats, but floating cities. Ancient cruise ships carrying humanity's last hope through the final flood. The bags of the gods. The ancient Sumerians, Assyrians, and Babylonians may have once communicated with supernatural beings known as the Anunnaki. In fact, they are believed to have been closer to the gods than any later civilization. Let's start with the Assyrians, who carved images of gods into stone. These deities were often depicted with wings and holding mysterious bags resembling modern handbags. When you look at them, it seems as if they're carrying little pieces of luggage. These gods also appear in stone carvings all across ancient Mesopotamia from Babylon to Sumer. Some suggest these gods were actually visitors from another planet. which might explain how these ancient civilizations advanced so quickly. The bags they carried are believed to symbolize a form of cosmic knowledge that the gods passed on to early humans on Earth. Another interpretation is that these objects are actually cones and buckets, items frequently shown in the hands of winged deities in Mesopotamian art. Many believe they were used in blessing rituals. The Anunnaki were worshipped as gods long before the Egyptians praised Osiris, or the Greeks honored Zeus. These were the original winged gods, possibly the inspiration for the angels of Christianity. To this day, archaeologists have yet to fully understand the Anunnaki. But one thing is certain: ancient Mesopotamian societies revered these mysterious cosmic gods. Whether they truly came from outer space remains a subject of heated debate. The decadent world before the Great Flood. A recent genetic study reveals a picture strikingly different from the traditional view of ancient humanity. Before the Great Flood, the world is believed to have fallen into a state of widespread decadence, resembling a city of sin on a global scale. Genetic data gathered from thousands of DNA samples indicate that ancient humans lived in a society steeped in unrestrained indulgence and limitless desire. By comparing the DNA of modern humans with that of their most distant ancestors, scientists discovered clear evidence of interbreeding among different human groups. There were no boundaries, no choices, and no distinctions. Mating occurred randomly and extensively for thousands of years. This finding uncannily aligns with descriptions in the Bible which says that God saw wickedness filling the earth, and that every thought in human hearts was evil. Thus, the Great Flood descended as an inevitable punishment for boundless corruption. It was not only violence. Humans of that time were also consumed by carnal pleasures as if they were life's sole purpose. Bioarchaeological evidence shows that three distinct human groups, Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans, coexisted on Earth 400 years ago, interbreeding freely with one another. The boundaries between species blurred through continuous mixing. Some scientists argue that the term species may no longer apply. These groups were in fact different forms of a single humanity. The pre-flood world was an intricate network of intertwined bloodlines, a society without biological divisions. Genetic analysis shows that Neanderthals were not vastly different from modern humans. Interbreeding produced completely healthy offspring. This leads to a theological hypothesis. Perhaps Neanderthals were the Nephilim, the giants destroyed by God for their great sins. Some even suggest that humanity may have originated from a single tribe descending from the first couple described in ancient texts. As they spread across the earth, they carried with them stories, symbols, religions, and myths which could explain why civilizations separated by thousands of miles share the same legends of floods, giants, and ancient gods. The Sumerian spaceship. According to Iraq's Minister of Transportation, the Sumerians launched spacecraft from what is now Iraq some 7,000 years ago. This controversial claim was made recently during the inauguration of a new airport in Dekar. He asserted that the world's first airport was built by the ancient Sumerians and used to launch spacecraft to explore other planets. Is there any basis for this claim? The minister cited the work of Russian professor Samuel Kramer, an expert on ancient Sumer, who described the Sumerians as possessing astronomical knowledge far beyond many later civilizations. The Sumerians recorded celestial phenomena as early as 3,500 B. C. Long before any other culture documented such observations. They were also the first society to associate planets with gods, such as their chief deity, Marduk, who was linked to Jupiter. Marduk later became the patron god of Babylon before it rose to prominence as Babylonia. However, Minister Kazimfan's statement is difficult to take as an official fact. He claimed that the Sumerians built an airport at the exact location where the new facility now stands. A curious coincidence. He also declared that all angels in the world were originally ancient Sumerians. An intriguing perspective to say the least. The Babylonian calendar. The ancient Babylonian calendar closely resembled the modern one. It consisted of 12 lunar months, with each month beginning when the first thin crescent moon appeared low on the western horizon at sunset. However, the Babylonians were not the first to use this type of calendar. They based it on the Nippur calendar of the Sumerians, established as early as the 21st century B.C. One fascinating detail about the Babylonian calendar is that they considered the seventh day of each week sacred, though they referred to it as an evil day because certain activities were forbidden. On this day, people were not allowed to make wishes, as this was once a tradition, and every day was designated as a day of rest. This suggests that the Babylonians thousands of years ago were the first to conceive the idea of a Sunday devoted to rest and relaxation. Next time you enjoy a lazy Sunday afternoon without work, you might thank the Babylonians. You could even make an offering to the gods on a Sunday, just as they once did. The main difference is that the modern calendar has evenly spaced weeks, while the Babylonian system sometimes had 3 7-day weeks, with the final week of the month stretching to 8 or 9 days if there were leftover days. Uruk was one of the most important cities of ancient Mesopotamia, founded by King Enmer around 500 B.C. It was located in Sumer, now modern-day Iraq. Uruk is renowned for its legendary king Gilgamesh, who sought immortality, but the city is also famous for a series of firsts in the history of human civilization. Uruk is considered the first true city ever built. Although not as old as Baalbek, it was the first city to invent seals for marking property and signing documents. Here the first ziggurat, a type of ancient step pyramid, was built during the 3rd millennium B.C., topped with a temple dedicated to the gods. Many historians believe that the ziggurat of Uruk inspired the Tower of Babel mentioned in the Bible. Uruk was inhabited for 800 years. For reasons still unknown, this once symbolic city of humanity was abandoned in 300 CE and forgotten until British archaeologists rediscovered it in 1853. The wheel. The ancient Sumerians were the inventors of the wheel, but not in the way you might think. They did not initially create it for chariots. Instead, they first invented the potter's wheel, paving the way for the development of wheels for transportation later on. The concept of the wheel first appeared around 500 B.C. when the Sumerians sought to optimize pottery production. They invented the potter's wheel, a hardened clay disc that could spin on an axis, allowing potters to shape wet clay into uniform vessels such as jars and bowls. Later, this idea evolved. They discovered that cutting wood into round sections, which they knew could roll heavy objects, and placing a sturdy axle through the center made moving loads far easier. Through experimentation, they invented the first wooden wheel and axle assembly. Eventually, they combined these wooden wheels with sled-like platforms, creating the world's first carts. The secret of the Djed symbol. Long before the first pyramids rose from the desert, and the pharaohs began to establish their power along the Nile, Egypt was already the cradle of a radiant civilization, one that harbored the faded memories of a forgotten age. That age didn't just mark the birth of sacred rituals and divine symbols, but may also hint at a time when humanity once possessed knowledge far beyond what we now comprehend. Hidden deep within temples among intricate memorial structures and mysterious religious motifs. 3 recurring symbols appear throughout ancient Egyptian art and ceremony: the Ankh, the Djed, and the W. These are often depicted together, forming the W scepter, a representation of the authority to rule over life and death. The Ankh is perhaps the most easily recognized symbol even by modern people who may not know its name. A cross with a looped handle resembling a key of life. It signifies eternal existence and was once adopted by early Egyptian Christians as a sign of faith in the afterlife and a divine savior. The was takes the shape of a staff with a curved top symbolizing power and dominion. But of the 3, the Djed remains the most mysterious. This symbol, shaped like a column with stacked horizontal bars, represents stability, cosmic order, and the sacred spine of Osiris, the lord of the afterlife. In Egypt's oldest religious texts, The jade appears so frequently and prominently that some scholars believe it may have been a foundational element of the earliest belief systems. What makes the jade particularly remarkable is its age. The symbol was carved into the burial pyramid of Faroujir at Saqqara, considered Egypt's first pyramid and estimated to be over 400–600 years old. Its presence in such an ancient structure suggests that the jade may have existed even before the pharaohs, perhaps dating back to a time when Egypt had yet to take form. The original meaning and origins of the jade remain an unsolved mystery. Some theories suggest it was a celestial pillar supporting the heavens, or perhaps a symbol connected to gods even older than Osiris, such as Seker or Ptah, key figures in pre-dynastic Egyptian religion. It wasn't until the New Kingdom period that the jade began appearing alongside the Ankh and was fully associated with Osiris, becoming his sacred spinal column, an emblem of resurrection from death. As researchers delve deeper into Egyptian culture, they realize the jade is more than a mythological motif. It appears everywhere, from the staff of thonography of Khonsu, the moon god, and throughout numerous ceremonial reliefs. What's even stranger is that when modern scholars closely examine the shape of the jade, it doesn't resemble any known architecture from Egypt, Greece, or Rome. Instead, it looks strikingly similar to a high-voltage electrical insulator, an oddly modern piece of technology that led to a bold theory. What if the jade wasn't just the spinal column of Osiris, but a remnant of ancient memory, a memory of a lost civilization? And if that were true, that civilization might very well have been Atlantis, the legendary kingdom buried in myth. Atlantis is often invoked when people speak of knowledge beyond time, advanced machinery, electronic devices, and scientific understanding far surpassing anything known until the 21st century. Perhaps the creators of the jade weren't only speaking of gods. Perhaps they were leaving behind a message that there once existed a world where people communicated through symbols, and where those symbols were technology. Shape-shifting monkeys in ancient Indian mythology. In the mythological lore of Asia, there are strange creatures endowed with power far beyond human limits. In ancient India, legends tell of a semi-human, semi-monkey race called the Vanera, intelligent warriors created by the god Brahma to battle a demonic species known as the Rakshasa. The Vanera looked nearly human, but had the ability to transform into monkeys in the blink of an eye. Once transformed, their bodies would grow large and their tails could lift a grown man or strike like a weapon. Even in their monkey forms, they could speak fluent human language. The Rakshasa were even more terrifying. They appear in Hindu, Islamic, Buddhist, and Jain mythology alike with claws, fangs, glowing red eyes, and a sharp sense of smell. Rakshasas were bloodthirsty demons that could fly, shapeshift, and spread horror through the night. Many researchers believe that the image of the Rakshasa may have inspired the earliest concepts of the vampire in Western culture. Their ability to vanish in mist, soar through the skies, and transform into animals are traits that pass down through centuries from India's jungles to Europe's castles. According to the legends, the Vanera allied with other kingdoms to wage a mythical war against the Rakshasa horde. After their victory, the monkey warriors retreated into the misty forest of Tangershawar, vanishing from history. It's believed they may still dwell there, hidden among the fog-shrouded trees, though no one has ever truly seen them. The Black Death. In all of human history, no catastrophe has ever matched the horror of the Black Death. It wasn't just a curse. It was the worst nightmare ever unleashed upon mankind. The bubonic plague swept across Europe, Asia, and North Africa for more than 200 years, from 1346 to 1553, and wiped out around 60% of the world's population. To put that in perspective, if something similar happened today, it would mean nearly 4 billion people would disappear. Those who lived through it may have believed the end times had arrived, that they were enduring a biblical curse. No civilization escaped the scythe of death. And yet, humanity survived. The plague passed and life continued. It took nearly 5 centuries for scientists to trace the first patient, the person who unknowingly ignited the pandemic. Clues led to Isk in present-day Kurdistan, once a major stop along the 14th century Silk Road. There, archaeologists discovered a sudden spike in graves during the years 1338 and 1339, 7 years before the full outbreak. It seems this was ground zero for a disaster that would engulf the globe. The material of Atlantis. The search for the lost city of Atlantis, a symbol of a forgotten civilization, may finally be approaching a turning point. In recent years, at least 5 separate archaeological discoveries have stunned researchers, each one suggesting that Atlantis might have been real. Amid endless debate and doubt, one underwater find has drawn particular attention. Like a faint beam of light shining into the ancient past. A sunken ship lying undisturbed for more than 200 years off the coast of Sicily has revealed secrets never before known. Within its decaying remains, archaeologists discovered dozens of strange red metal ingots. Not gold, not silver, but a mysterious alloy once described in ancient Greek mythology as a substance unique to Atlantis. These radiant red bars, unlike anything known today, were called by their legendary name, orichalcum. According to ancient texts, especially those of Plato, auriculum was a luminous metal that bathed the city of Atlantis in glowing red light. He wrote that orilam was second only to gold in value, and could only be mined in Atlantis itself, a glorious city said to have sunk beneath the waves around 600 B.C. But if Atlantis vanished, then where did these metal bars come from? Some bold theories have emerged. One suggests that Atlantis wasn't destroyed, but instead left Earth altogether, a mobile city that now floats in space. Another claims the Atlanteans were an extraterrestrial race who visited Earth temporarily, and when war or chaos erupted, they simply departed. A third theory proposes that Atlantis perished in a global nuclear catastrophe, triggering tsunamis, earthquakes, and landscape shifts that buried its remains beneath mountains. Back at the wreck off Sicily, the underwater archaeology team recovered a total of 39 ingots of auriculum. Professor Sebastiano Tusa suggested the ship may have sailed from the city of Gela in southern Sicily, transporting the alloy to trade with ancient Greek regions. But a violent storm overtook the vessel before it reached port. Based on analysis, the sinking likely occurred in the early 6th century B.C. The greatest mystery lies in the fact that although experts can determine the alloy's composition, no one can trace its true origin. According to modern analysis, aurical is a type of copper alloy created through carbonizing, melting copper, zinc, and carbon together. While this technique wasn't far beyond ancient metallurgy, its presence near an area suspected to be Atlantis raises the question: is this a relic of lost technology? Many scientists believe that while the ingots may not have come directly from Atlantis, they could be the last surviving traces of a lost civilization, a fading memory of ancient engineering buried beneath the sea. Like the faint glow of an oil lamp in the dark corridors of history, these red metals are telling a story still unfinished. A forgotten chapter waiting for humanity to write its end. When did archaeology begin? Museums weren't a modern invention. Even in ancient times, people felt the need to preserve and display objects older than themselves. Located in the city of Andaldi, Nana's collection wasn't random. It consisted of carefully chosen artifacts dating from 100 B.C. to 600 B.C. These included statues, ceremonial mace heads, and boundary stones, all clearly labeled with multilingual inscriptions, including Sumerian. Why did Anagaldi Nana collect these relics? Simply because she loved the past, just like we do today. Her father, King Nabonidus, is considered the world's first archaeologist due to his deep fascination with history. He personally led excavations, uncovered lost texts, and many of the items in Anagaldi, Nana's museum came from his discoveries. You could say that their family had archaeology in their blood. The labels on the artifacts weren't just decorative. They were early examples of metadata providing key details about each object. Much like modern museum displays, this suggests that Anagaldi Nana may have used the collection for educational purposes, not just personal curiosity. Using texts left by earlier priestesses, she revived rituals from 800 years earlier and reopened a training school for young temple women. In doing so, she didn't just preserve history, she passed it on. In the Neo-Ablonian era, a passion for the past became central to kingship. Nabonidus didn't just focus on archaeology. He restored ancient religious traditions tied to the moon god Sin. When Anagaldi Nana was appointed, her religious office and its rituals had nearly been forgotten. Thanks to records she recovered from the time of Nebuchadnezzar I, she was able to bring many of them back to life. The king was reviving a tradition broken for over 1,000 years, bringing history back into the present. Sadly, the city of and its museum didn't last forever. Around 500 B.C., the city was abandoned. No one knows how many priceless texts and artifacts were lost with it. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. If one had to choose the greatest achievement of the Babylonians, it would undoubtedly be the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Even though no trace of it remains today, these gardens are believed to have been built by King Nebuchadnezzar II, the most celebrated ruler in Babylonian history, who reigned from 605 to 562 B.C. However, the Hanging Gardens have always been surrounded by controversy. Some scholars don't believe they ever existed. Others argue that the gardens weren't Babylonian at all, but Assyrian. The problem lies in the lack of solid archaeological evidence. Everything we know comes from ancient written accounts. To complicate things further, the city of Babylon was once controlled by both Babylonians and Assyrians, making its history even harder to untangle. So, what exactly were the Hanging Gardens of Babylon? According to ancient descriptions, they were among the most beautiful gardens the world had ever seen, resembling a step pyramid draped in lush greenery and blooming flowers. The structure featured stone terraces, colossal trees, vibrant blossoms in every direction, and even an amphitheater rising over 60 feet into the air. If it truly existed, this might have been the grandest botanical creation in human history. The ancient sailboat. In ancient Mesopotamia, a critical invention emerged out of human ingenuity and necessity. The sailboat. Around 5,000 years ago, the unique geography of the region with 2 major rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, pushed the early civilizations of Sumer and Assyria to develop new ways to cross rivers and trade. The first boats were very simple wooden vessels capable of moving downstream or upstream, but not effectively across the river. Eventually, inventors realized that wind could be harnessed to push a larger boat. In the beginning, however, they didn't know how to control the sail's direction to make full use of the wind. Instead, they attached a square piece of cloth and simply went wherever the wind carried them. And the boats couldn't hold much cargo. Still, these primitive sailboats helped propel Mesopotamian civilization to become the most powerful empire of its time. The invention was later adopted and improved upon by nearly every other society on Earth. Anunnaki, Atlantis, and the mystery of hybrid creation. Many ancient cultures separated by vast distances in both space and time tell stories of intelligent beings with features somewhere between man and monkey. A surprising common thread appears in everything from Mesopotamian carvings to Hindu mythology. Humanoid creatures created to fulfill a grand purpose. One long-standing theory suggests that when the Anunnaki, an advanced extraterrestrial race, arrived on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, they found nothing but wild beasts and dying dinosaurs. They hadn't come to study the planet. They came to mine the precious metals hidden deep underground. But since they didn't want to labor themselves, they decided to create a workforce. Using the available biological material, they engineered a new species, neither fully simian nor entirely divine. The Venera of Hindu myth may have been the result of this process. The parallels between mythology and ancient records have led some researchers to ask, are these all retellings of the same story, just in different languages? In the Malay language, the word Rasa means giant, an eerie match for the biblical term Nephilim. If the Venera were genetically engineered beings, then the Rakshasa might have been a failed version, a giant hybrid species that spun out of control and had to be destroyed. What once seemed like separate legends now begin to align like puzzle pieces from the same picture. The beginning of humanity crafted by a superior intelligence, and the consequences of experiments that pushed past natural limits. Ancient ruins in Bolivia. High in the cold Altiplano of the Andes lies a forgotten city veiled in mist. Tiwanaku. Its massive stones, puzzle-like walls, and mortarless foundations remain scattered like evidence of a civilization far ahead of its time. Modern archaeologists still don't understand how the Tiwanaku people were able to transport, shape, and fit these hundreds-ton stones with such precision. Data suggests the city was built around 900 years ago when the Roman Empire ruled Europe. Tiwanaku flourished spectacularly, peaking in the 8th century, then suddenly collapsed. By the year 1000, nearly the entire population had vanished. Some theories blame an unusually dry climate. Others point to disease or war. But one possibility is whispered more quietly. A flood. Not the ancient flood of myth, but a devastating surge of water roughly 1,000 years ago. It struck without warning, sweeping the people away, leaving behind unfinished walls and half-carved stones. If true, then history may have seen more than one cataclysmic flood. The Sumerian king list. Some secrets from humanity's past lie buried so deeply that only fragments remain in official history. Among them is an ominous artifact known as the Sumerian king list, a stone engraved document detailing 241,000 years of kingship across Sumer's ancient city-states. Sumer is considered the first cradle of civilization, carved into a massive stone prism and covered in dense cuneiform script. The king list isn't something you'd casually find in a library. It is a living historical relic dating to the Old Babylonian period around 1830 to 1531 B.C. Scholars were stunned by its detail. The list is divided into sections, each naming the kings of a particular dynasty or city. The most shocking part is at the very beginning. The first line reads, "After kingship descended from heaven." Kingship was first established in Eridu for those who believe in the ancient astronaut theory. This is proof that human authority originated from beings who came from the sky. The mysterious Anunnaki. The first named king is Alulim, said to have ruled for 800 years. He is followed by others, each reigning between 18,000 and 43,000 years. Dynasty after dynasty flows by in unbelievable numbers until the words suddenly appear. Then the flood swept over. The Great Flood ended the era of immortal kings. After the disaster, the list continues with familiar names from Mesopotamian mythology. 23 kings are listed in the post-flood era, ruling for a total of more than 24,000 years, each living from 300 to 500 years. While still beyond modern human lifespans, these reigns are a marked decline from their predecessors. Among those names is a familiar one, Gilgamesh, the heroic king of Uru, said to have ruled for 126 years and later became the focus of one of history's greatest epics. But after him, reign shortened rapidly. His son ruled only 30 years. His grandson less than 15. The list goes on. Names echoing from an era long past. Some kings ruled for 300 years. Others for less than 100. Clearly, something had changed. A silent loss that stripped the ancient kings of their near immortality. Modern scholars believe that many of the kings on the list may never have existed. Or if they did, they were hybrids, a blend of human and something else. According to one theory, the earliest kings were extraterrestrials, followed by hybrids and finally by fully human rulers. When the name Sargon of Akkad, founder of the Akkadian Empire around 270 B.C., appears in the list, everything suddenly becomes normal. From that point on, no king reigns for millennia. The numbers drop into a range we can understand, though the list accuracy is widely debated. The Sumerian king list remains one of the most valuable sources for understanding Mesopotamian prehistory. It doesn't just outline an ancient line of power. It reveals a deep belief in divine kingship where rulers were more than men. They were vessels of strength from the heavens above. The genetic curse of the Neanderthals. In the bloodline of modern humans, many genes from our Neanderthal ancestors still remain. Unfortunately, some people seem to have been cursed with a particular gene variant that makes their cells more susceptible to coronavirus infection, causing the illness to become far more severe. This discovery only emerged during the CO-9 pandemic, when researchers found that an ancient gene passed down over hundreds of thousands of years could make certain individuals more vulnerable to the virus. Many believe that being born with genes for red hair or baldness is unfortunate, but those traits pale in comparison to the Neanderthal variant that compromises immune defenses. According to scientists, a small but significant portion of the population carries this Neanderthal gene variant, which may double or even quadruple the risk of severe complications from CO-19. The root of the problem lies in an enzyme called DPP4, a protein that allows the coronavirus to latch onto human cells. For those carrying the Neanderthal version of DPP4, the virus gains an additional side door to invade, dramatically increasing the severity of infection. Sadly, there is currently no inexpensive way for people to test and determine the percentage of Neanderthal DNA in their bodies. While some are cursed with a harmful variant, others are fortunate to carry a Neanderthal-derived version that actually helps them fight CO-19 more effectively. The Curse of Cyprus. In 2008, archaeologists excavated a lead tablet on the southern coast of Cyprus, inscribed with a bizarre curse dating back to the 7th century B.C. from the ancient kingdom of Amphis. This was not a curse aimed at destroying an entire civilization, but rather targeted at a single man, someone who had clearly provoked extreme anger. The curse inscribed on the tablet was simple: "May your male organs suffer pain during intercourse." The tablet also depicted a man holding an hourglass, as if to warn that the cursed individual's time was running out. According to archaeologist Pierre Aubert of the Athens School of Archaeology, this is clear evidence of ancient witchcraft or magical practices. What makes it even more remarkable is that by the 7th century, Christianity had already taken root in Amyntas. Yet, in moments of rage or desperation, people still turn to spells and dark magic. The road to Atlantis. Beneath the ocean waves where the waters crash against the shores of Bimini in the Bahamas, a strange stone formation has divided scientists for over half a century. To many researchers, it is nothing more than a natural rock formation. But to believers in the legend, it is the road to Atlantis. In 1968, divers first discovered the line of stones lying nearly 6 m below the surface. Before their eyes were massive rectangular limestone blocks fitted tightly together like an ancient stone-paved road, or perhaps the remains of a harbor or a wall shattered by time. The path stretches nearly 150 m before abruptly ending in a hook-shaped curve. 2 parallel rows of stones nearby make it resemble modern bike lanes branching off the main road. In the 1970s, scientists surveyed the area and concluded that the stones were actually beach rock, a type of rock formed under beach sand as cedar seeped in and precipitated minerals over thousands of years. As sea levels rose, the beach vanished and erosion shaped the rock into formations that looked like a paved road. After that conclusion, mainstream research largely ceased. There were no wheel tracks, no architectural remnants, and no artifacts to confirm that Atlantis ever existed here. Yet geologist Robert M. Schoch disagreed. From his perspective, the Bimini Road has an artificial origin, perhaps the remains of a sunken city. The precision of the blocks and their arrangement convinced many independent researchers that they were placed in a deliberate pattern unlikely to be the random work of nature. Some scholars have even proposed bold theories linking this stone structure to lost ancient civilizations, or even intervention by extraterrestrial intelligence. To this day, the underwater road at Bimini remains an unsolved mystery, a pathway into the past whose destination still lies hidden beneath the deep blue sea. The fall of the Roman Republic. A volcanic eruption in Alaska believed to have occurred in early 43 B.C. may have triggered a catastrophic climate event that contributed to the collapse of the Roman Republic. During 43 and 42 B.C., Europe and North Africa were suddenly gripped by unusually cold, prolonged, rainy weather. Temperatures dropped to their lowest levels in 500 years. Crops failed. Famine spread. Disease ran rampant. And Rome descended into chaos. The eruption came from Mount Amach on Umnak Island. The blast was so massive that scientists believe it caused Mediterranean temperatures to fall by more than 13 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 consecutive years, amid an already unstable political landscape. The cold and darkness acted like a final curse that drove the Roman people to the edge of fear. At the same time, Julius Caesar was assassinated by 40 Roman senators, marking the end of the Republic. The perfect number. Throughout the history of religious traditions across the world, the number 3 has appeared with remarkable frequency and is regarded as the most powerful of all numbers. Often called the perfect number, it is associated with the image of the divine triad, not only in Christianity, but also in many other religions and mythologies. In Christianity, this triad is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The concept of the Trinity, which was formally established at the Council of Nika in the year 325 AD, becoming a central foundation of faith. The origins of this triad are tied to various cultural streams. Some scholars, notably Elaine Pagels, have suggested that the idea of the divine triad was borrowed by the early Christians from Jewish tradition, where God was originally described as genderless before shifting toward a masculine identity in Christian theology. Over time, the notion of 3 in 1 sparked numerous debates, giving rise to misunderstandings and differing interpretations within the Church itself. Beyond Christianity, the number 3 also holds a central place in Eastern religions. Buddhism describes the 3 bodies of the Buddha: body, speech, and mind, similar to how the Trinity expresses 3 aspects of divinity. Ancient Jewish Kabbalah speaks of the 3 first emanations from the divine source: nothingness, wisdom, and understanding, forming the basis of all existence. There is a theory suggesting that the Trinity is not merely about 3 separate entities, but symbolizes the unified process of creation itself. In this sense, the Trinity represents both creation and unity, a theme that appears across many religions around the world. Perhaps that is why the number 3 so often emerges as a symbol of balance, unity, and the mystery behind every act of creation. If you found these mysterious stories fascinating, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our upcoming discoveries. We'll see you in the next.